Good morning. Good morning. Happy Wednesday. Happy Wellness Wednesday. I hope you are having a fabulous morning already. I know for some of you, it may be too early to tell. If you are just stumbling on my page, my name is Donna. I am a mom. I am a nana. I'm a girlfriend, certified personal trainer, starting grad school on October 9th. I'm so excited to begin my master's in mental health counseling. I am a published author, which I'm going to touch on real briefly here for a specific reason. And I'm definitely a wellness advocate. I started Wellness Wednesday because I have been in a lifelong journey of battling depression and anxiety, and learning to work around it, work with it, work through it. And I know that a lot of times I am helped by people who share their own experiences. So with Wellness Wednesday, we can kind of share experiences together on various topics. I love to see comments. I love it when you tell me that you are on and that you're watching, and when you give feedback, when you give tips that you've learned yourself for how you've become more well and where you are on your wellness journey. So that is what Wellness Wednesday is all about. Last week, we talked about music and how it can affect you physically. Today is part 2. And we're going to talk about how music can affect you with your mental health. Good morning, Miss Stacy. Great to see you. All right. So real quick, I'm not one to, this is not a forum for selling or anything like that. I do have an activewear boutique. I mentioned that I'm a published author. So let's talk about that for just a minute, because next week is National Mental Health Awareness Week. And I am also a part-time program director for NAMI Citrus. NAMI is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And there's a lot of grassroots efforts going on here in Citrus County and across the nation through NAMI that a lot of people are not aware of. In fact, a few months ago, I had the executive director, Cindy, on as a guest on Wellness Wednesday to talk about NAMI and some of the programs they offer, which are free. And there's just a lot of opportunity there for people who are seeking support groups or just seeking support in general. NAMI is a fantastic resource, and I encourage you to reach out to it. I wanted to, in case you haven't seen on my page before, I am part of this amazing book of 25 Unstoppable Women, where we had the opportunity to each write a chapter and share our stories about how we changed our mindset or we changed our lives or whatever the case may have been for each individual. The reason I'm telling you this is because next week, good morning, Miss Erica, is National Mental Health Awareness Week. That's a mouthful, isn't it? And for those that don't know, I have been selling copies of this book as a fundraiser for NAMI, for my local NAMI, giving me weird messages right now, for NAMI Citrus. So you can grab a copy of the signed book. There's my lighting back. I don't know what that was all about. You can grab a copy of my signed book for $29.95. Over half of that goes to NAMI Citrus. I'm only trying to cover the cost of the book, and then the rest of it is a fundraiser for NAMI. So keep that in mind as National Mental Health Awareness Week comes up, that this is an option. Reach out to me if you want to know more. There are some fantastic stories in here. So that is all I have to say about that. Let's get back to the task at hand. So music. As I said, last week we talked a little bit about how music can affect you physically. Music has been a huge part of my life. And I was actually quite surprised that I never touched on it before, other than maybe briefly. So it seemed like a great series to get into. Today we're going to talk about how it can affect you mentally, how it can affect your mental health. And then next week there's going to be a part 3, which is going to kind of touch on music at different ages and cognition and things like that. And then that'll be it for now on the music series. For now. And the reason I say for now is because as I start digging into this, and I can't believe I haven't researched this particular topic more, maybe because I listened to it so much, I kind of thought I was the authority on it anyway. I mean, right? But as I dig in, what I'm learning is this is a rabbit hole, y'all. This could be a total rabbit hole. Cause I'm like, well, why does it do that? And why does it do that? And you know, I could spend days on this alone. So, think about your playlist. If you have a music playlist, if you are the type of person that listens to just one thing, all the time, you know, like one type of music, or if you're like me and you could hear Bee Gees coming out of my Jeep 1 minute, and the next minute hear me listening to Eminem, or Guns N' Roses. So, you know, or something extremely current and popular. My music tastes are all over the place. And the reason is that each point in my life has introduced me to some type of music or been associated with some type of music. And even if some of those points weren't so great, the music has often stuck for one reason or another. And then over time, sometimes that music invokes memories, and other times, because of my mindset changes, my personal growth, that music stops meaning one thing to me and starts meaning another. So there is definitely effect on mental health when it comes to music. And again, as I said, my taste has shifted over time. There are still some songs that I will always leave on no matter what's happening or what kind of mood I'm in. I am still, and this might surprise you, I'm still a huge Guns N' Roses fan. I still love the Guns N' Roses that I listened to when I was a teenager. And there are just certain songs like Patience, or Mr. Brownstone, which, if you get into the study of lyrics, could actually be horrible. But these songs are just, I enjoy them, and I rarely turn them off when they come on, regardless of my mood. However, there are other songs that I used to listen to on repeat, that kind of fed my depression and anxiety. And I still love those songs, but I don't listen to them as often. I turn them off more because my mindset has changed and my level of anxiety has changed. Excuse me. I have a tendency, to listen to them less or enjoy them differently than I did at another point in my life. So, how can music affect mental health? Well, for starters, or why does it? The amygdala. We're going to talk a little geek here for a minute. The amygdala is responsible for processing music, but it is also the center of our mood and emotions. So does that make sense? In that one statement, everything starts to make more sense now, right? Y'all, excuse me, I'm so sorry. We went to Colorado, and when we came back, since we've been back, rather, I've been struggling with my sinuses. Like, my body didn't appreciate the huge climate and pressure change. And when we got back, the temperatures and dew points dropped a little bit, and now they've come back up. So we're back to Florida. Good morning, Miss Elsa. So just apologize for the coughing. Hopefully there won't be too much of it. In any case, so it makes sense now that if the amygdala is responsible for processing music, that it is also, and it is the center of our mood and emotions, how it's possible that music could have such a profound effect, right? So, according to an article written in a well-being blog by Shauna Waters, who is a PhD, anxiety affects, and this was in 2022, so the number may even be a little higher now. Anxiety affects around 40 million adults in the United States as of February of 2022. And around half of those also have depression. So what is the point here? Well, the point is that dopamine and serotonin are two primary factors in anxiety and depression for a myriad of reasons that I haven't dug into enough to flesh out for you because I am not a doctor. But as you know, most medications that are out there that treat anxiety and depression do something to your dopamine and or serotonin receptors, inhibitors, uptakes, whatever, to help activate pleasure centers. And music does that also. Music activates your pleasure center and releases dopamine, which is why music can be profoundly helpful for your mental health. It also helps regulate your mood. Again, as I said, the amygdala is responsible for processing music. It also is the center for our mood and emotions and our emotional regulation. Smaller people, younger people, smaller children, they have that. All of that's not fully formed yet. and they don't have the ability to maybe process their emotions as well. And next week we'll dig into a little bit about how music can help at different age levels because of those types of things. Listening to music on a regular basis can relieve acute stress. So acute stress is the massive stress you're feeling right now, and actually prevent it from becoming chronic stress by reducing cortisol levels. So cortisol, that's that stress hormone we hear about, that the bigger it gets, the bigger our bellies get, the more metabolic syndrome type conditions we can have, amongst other things. And like I said, I don't want to dig too much into the medical side because that's not my forte. But again, music can reduce cortisol levels, which can have a profound impact on your levels of stress and the way you feel the stress in your body, the way your body experiences it. And of course, your mind. It also increases motivation. For example, there was a study that was cited. It was a static bike study that was done on people that were using spinning bikes, static bikes, stationary, same difference. And when the tempo of the music was increased by 10%, so was the cyclist's speed, power, and distance. So we talked a little bit about that last week in terms of motivation, that music has a motivating impact, a distracting impact on us when we're exercising, when we're working out, so that we are more likely to perform better. But there's a mental component to it too, which is that there is a motivating factor. So a lot of times the music you choose while you're working out makes a huge difference. If you're working, and it depends on the person. Like for me, I have some songs on my playlist that are motivating because I know the lyrics and they make me feel strong or capable of anything or whatever. But as I stated last week, there are also songs that have a higher cadence. They're more upbeat. And I know that I run a faster pace when those songs are on. I know that they pick up my energy. So there is definitely a mental component. Furthermore, music can help you feel and articulate your feelings better. Now, this is where you get into a little bit of a focus on song lyrics, which can also be a rabbit hole and can, depending on the situation and the song, be a little dangerous. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But song lyrics, when we identify them with them, it's often because there's something going on with us that reflects what we're hearing in the song, or we're interpreting the song lyric according to our lens and what's happening in our lives. And sometimes if we don't know how to articulate our feelings, having a song that kind of speaks it for us makes a difference and makes it more possible for us to articulate our feelings and the reasons behind them for ourselves and to other people. So there is a lyric component there. And of course, it depends on the song and the person and what you're listening to and how you are interpreting those lyrics. There are some musical artists who I don't know how, if you're watching, if you remember the days of the cassette tapes and the small pamphlets full of song lyrics for every song, Good Morning, Miss Carla, on the cassette tape. But there were artists that refused to do that. There were artists that would not give the lyrics to their songs for those inserts. And the reason for that was that they may have meant something specific by their music, but at the same time, they understood that other people listening to their music, and I actually read articles on this quite some time ago, they wanted the people that were listening to their music to experience the music in their own way. So they wouldn't give the lyrics because they wanted you to interpret and hear what was going to work for you to make that song perfect for you. So that's a very, very interesting factor. So again, music can help you feel and articulate your feelings. And we touched on that a little bit last week too, in that music can help you or it can hurt you depending on what you're listening to and how much you're ruminating or thinking about. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more in just a moment. So what types of music? I did a little bit of this last week. What types of music do what types of things for you physically? So it's okay to listen to, and so here's where we talk about that negative side a little bit again. It's okay to listen to a song that pairs with anger or sadness. I'll give you a small example that I'll probably flesh out a little bit more next week. We lost a very important member of the community this week. Thank you, Miss Erica. You too. We lost a very important member of the community this week. And because of the way I was introduced to this gentleman, and the brain, what I affectionately refer to as the brain problem that I have with music, there's actually quite the funny little story. I'm not sure I'm quite prepared to tell it, and it may be more appropriate for next week's topic anyway. In any case, I just kind of lost my train of thought for a second, guys. Hold on just a second. Music associates with certain feelings. That's where I was going. So this gentleman and my experience meeting him for the first time is associated with a particular song, is where I'm going with this. And so it's, when I found out that he had passed, it took me about 4 days to feel it. I think I was in kind of go mode. There was a lot going on here. So I wasn't really, I hadn't really stopped and shed a tear or felt, I felt sadness, but it just really hadn't hit me. And on Sunday morning, it hit me pretty hard. So when you're in a situation like that, I also had a friend tell me recently that she needed to cry. She needed to get some feelings out, but she hadn't been able to. I think it may have had something to do with the medication she was on that was kind of numbing her a little bit. So sometimes, where I'm going with this is, it's okay to listen to a song that pairs with anger or sadness. I talked about this a little bit last week. And sometimes that can help us have that cathartic moment that we need to have. So if you know you need to get something out and you are struggling to do it, putting on a song that you know invokes crying, tears, anger, screaming, whatever, in the right setting for the right reasons can help bring you to that point where you can have that cathartic moment and get it out. That wasn't the case here for me, but it's a great example of how that can work. More than likely, had it not hit me on Sunday when it finally did, it would have, when I heard the song that was associated with him, which is a very happy song, but it would have invoked that memory and the recent loss of this gentleman, and it would have had an effect on me. So it is okay to listen to a song that pairs with anger or sadness, but don't stay there. This is kind of like it's okay to have a meltdown, but don't unpack and live there. Same exact idea. I can remember a time in my life where one or two particular songs that were very, very sad, very, very associated with loss in my life, that when they would come on, I would put it on repeat. Just play it again and play it again and play it again. And I would cry, and it would set the tone for my mood for the day, and change my day in a negative way. So I went from cathartic to rumination, and an extreme focus on that loss or that negative time in my life, and it affected everything else I did for the day in a negative manner. So that's what I mean when I say don't stay there long. So it's okay to listen to a song that pairs with anger or sadness if it's appropriate to helping to process those feelings. But don't stay there long. Move on to music that puts you in the mood you want to be in. Because time and time again, we are our own examples of how focusing on something more positive or doing something that gives us energy even when we don't have the energy brings us to that point, right? And you remember this, you may or may not remember if you were on the story I told about the young lady who started TikTok videos stating that she was beautiful as a joke. She didn't really believe she was beautiful, but everybody kept telling her that if she kept saying it, she would believe it. So she started it as a joke. And lo and behold, as time went on, she actually started to believe she was beautiful. So we are what we repeatedly do. So if we repeatedly ruminate and focus on what we've lost and the past and the things we can't change and the things that make us sad, what are we going to be? We're going to be sad. So again, don't unpack and live there. Move on, have your cathartic moment, and then move on to music that puts you into the place, the mood you want to be in. So, what type of music? Classical music. Let's talk about that. Classical music pops up a lot in this research across the board. Last week when we talked about physical, we talked about how people use it to focus when they're studying, and that I'd never really tried that, but I'm going to have lots of opportunities to do so here very shortly. Classical music, London started playing classical music in train stations. And after 18 months, they saw a 37% decrease in vandalism, a 33% decrease in robberies, and a 25% decrease in assaults on staff. Now, if that's not evidence that there is a profound mental impact on music, nothing is. Those are some pretty incredible stats, right? So classical music has a key role in a lot of different ways. And from personal experience, I would suspect that some of it has to do with true classical music doesn't really have lyrics. You're talking about things like Bach and Beethoven and things like that. You're not talking about the lyricless elevator music when you get in and you're like, hey, I know this song, and you're still singing the lyrics in your head, even though there's no lyrics playing because it's the instrumental version. So those can have two profoundly different things, because classical music, you're not trying to sing along with, you're listening to the music and you're feeling the music, and it's not distracting you mentally necessarily, unless you're really a music geek, if you will, and you're studying the different sounds and the way they go up and down and all the terms that I don't know anything about. But if there's lyrics, sometimes that's distracting your brain, and those lyrics may trigger something that causes you to think about something else. And the next thing you know, you're singing and you're not studying or whatever. So classical music is used a lot in music therapy, and it's used a lot. It's promoted for background music for study. And it obviously has had a tremendous impact in London on crime associated with train stations. So jazz music would be the next one. We didn't talk about jazz music at all last week. Can induce an alpha wave state that is common when you're awake but very relaxed. So jazz music is often prescribed for winding down at the end of the day. Or if your anxiety's really, really high and you just need a break, jazz music might be a good musical break in there to help kind of calm you back down and bring you back down to homeostasis, if you will. And jazz music is pretty cool. It's not at the top of my list of things, but I have found myself, like when we were in New Orleans and they were playing it at breakfast when we went to brunch, it definitely has its own sound and definitely has its own unique effect on me. So might see a little bit more of that in my playlist. So this is where it's good to be open to different types of music and different genres, because you might be surprised. Rap music. Brought this up a little bit last week. Going to talk about it again. Rap music that includes stories. I know everybody's like, rap music? Seriously, Donna? Rap music that includes stories of overcoming obstacles or achieving success in extreme situations can help fight depression and help with motivation. I'm going to talk about a song by Eminem. I know he's very controversial. Can't remember the name of it right now. Cannot remember the name of it right now. I'll probably have to drop the link in the comments. It's a very motivating song. Gosh, I've just lost it. I may have to look it up real quick here, guys. The moment, I cannot remember. I've just completely lost it. Eminem. Somebody needs to help me. Danielle, are you still watching? The song. What is it called? I cannot remember. The music is the moment. I think he even talks about mom's spaghetti in there. Lose Yourself. The name of the song is Lose Yourself. And it talks about, it essentially, my interpretation is it talks about, I got it, Danielle. It's Lose Yourself by Eminem. Thank you. I was really struggling, which is odd for me. So he talks about in this song, he is talking about stepping up beyond obstacles, beyond extreme obstacles, and taking the opportunity that you have in the moment so that you don't lose yourself, or losing yourself in the moment so that you can move forward. Anyway, it's been a minute since I've listened to it. It is on my playlist. It is on my phone. And it has been known to show up on workout playlists for me because it is very motivating. I can also tell you that there have been times where I have been experiencing serious depression, and this particular song has helped to motivate me out of it, has helped me to go, okay, Donna, we're done here. You need to move forward. What is next? What is the next step? Instead of continuing to wallow and ruminate there. So yes, rap music can actually be motivating, and it can actually help battle depression if you're listening to the right song, because oftentimes these rap songs are talking about overcoming oppression. They are talking about overcoming obstacles and rising up above whatever it is. So again, requires some monitoring, especially in children, because oftentimes rap music also discusses crime and substance use and things like that. So again, use with caution. Holiday music. The reason that we all love holiday music so much, and some of us may not love it as much, and it could be for the same reason, is that it often fosters a sense of community, remembrance, and celebration. So I know people that start listening to Christmas music like at the beginning of September, and I'm like, what the heck? But when the time comes and we get closer to music, good morning, Miss Laura, and we get closer to the holidays, that holiday music does give me a sense of joy, and it gives me a sense of remembering what the holiday is about, depending on the type of holiday music I'm listening to. If I'm listening to the more Christian, faith-based Christmas music that was developed out of actual hymns, or if I'm listening to the more popular, upbeat, kind of rocking around the Christmas tree type thing that puts me in a party mood, in a decorating mood, in a Christmas wrapping presents mood. But all of these, holiday music is associated with a holiday that tends to make us happy. Now, some people do suffer more depression during the holidays, and it's going to be a lot of times for the same reason. That's twofold. It may give you a sense of peace and happiness, but at the same time, it may be associated with things that you've lost. That word remembrance. Johnny Mathis. That's a great choice, Carla. And you guys are probably going to see more jazz music and more classical wordless piano type music show up in my playlist because of the things that I have coming up. And we're going to talk about that more in just a minute too. So those are some different types of music, a little bit different from last week. We talked about rap last week. We talked about classical last week. We didn't talk about jazz. We didn't talk about holiday music. Those are some different types of music that you can incorporate or listen to that can be associated with specific types of feelings. So the negative side, music can contribute to the development of depression and anxiety, particularly when it comes to rumination. Rumination, again, being that constant process of looking back and stewing, basically, on things that you've lost and things that have happened that you can't change, that went badly, and things of that nature. This can be specific to teenagers. This is really something to watch with teenagers. And we'll dig a little bit more into that next week, because we're going to talk about the ages and how music can affect you cognitively and how it affects different age groups differently. And I found some really funny factoids on that. Also, we'll talk more about that next week. But teenagers, particularly with rumination, because teenagers they tend to naturally, with the hormones, experience some levels of depression and anxiety just because of puberty, right? So even though I ignored my parents, laughed at them, and got mad at them when they were like, I don't think you should be listening to that. That music sounds horrible. There may actually be a reason that parents should be very aware of what their children are listening to and why. I'm not saying run in, and this puts me in mind of an old 80s rock song by Twisted Sister. Can't remember the name of that one either right now, and I'm usually much better at this because I do have a very musical brain. Oh, we're not going to take it. That was the name of it, by Twisted Sister, back in the 80s. The video depicted parents just having a kazoo about what their children were listening to, and the children were rebelling. Okay, so maybe you don't want to run into the bedroom, snatch the boombox. I know that's not really a thing anymore. Snatch the boombox, the iPod, whatever, and be like, you're not allowed to listen to this anymore. That's usually not quite the right approach. That's almost like an engraved invitation for them to do it anyway. So, but you do want to be cognizant of what your children are listening to, and you may want to engage in conversations like, this is an interesting song. Why do you like it? And talk to them about that so that you can understand why that music that they're listening to speaks to them. If it's, well, I don't know, it's because so-and-so is listening to it and I thought it sounded cool, then we'll talk a little bit more about that next week. But you may be able, if you don't react in an extreme manner, even if you're concerned about a song, and you find out, especially with teenagers, with younger children, it's a little easier to be like, okay, no, that's not appropriate. We're not listening to that anymore. When you get into those teenage emotions, those adolescent puberty things, it's a good idea if you can engage them and show some interest and find out the why, about why they enjoy a song. Sometimes they just like the beat. Sometimes it doesn't have to be about the lyrics. And sometimes it is about the lyrics. But it's always important to know the why before you just start taking things away, especially at that age. So it can contribute to the development of depression and anxiety, again, in terms of that word rumination, and whether you're constantly putting on repeat a song that takes you back to a bad time and makes you relive that memory, or whether you are using it as a cathartic moment and then moving on to something more upbeat. So remember that there's no such thing as too much music if it's the right kind. And that the study that I quoted last week recommends about 78 minutes a day for your recommended daily allowance of music, at least. And that was definitely a mix of different types of music to kind of keep you balanced. So I would encourage you, and I would even challenge you this week to try listening to something new. And if you have something in mind, or again, just like last week, if you have a favorite, drop the link or drop the name of the song in the comments so that anybody else that's watching, so that whoever, or that's looking at the comments can sample that music, if you will. If there's a YouTube link to a video or to the song, go ahead and drop it in the comments. I would challenge you to listen to or add some type of new music or music you don't usually listen to into your daily repertoire, to see and pay attention to how that music makes you feel, and how your body moves. Like, do you find your foot you're like, I don't know if I really like this, but your foot's over here tapping. Then that might be a signal that music is maybe a little more appealing than what you were originally willing to admit. So that's my challenge to you. Next week, we're going to dig a little bit into the geekdom side of music, as I call it. And that's when we're going to start really talking about the brain, and more specifically, the brain in terms of age and how music can affect and or help or negatively affect at different age groups. And this is going to be especially crucial when it comes to cognition and things like dementia. So definitely want to stay tuned for next week. There was something else I wanted to tell you that I just realized this morning. So when I posted my notice about today's Wellness Wednesday, I forgot to change the number. Today is episode 50. Why is that significant? Well, because there was one that I had to skip because of the hurricane. And then another time that I had to do a replay because I was sick. So I replayed an old one. So what that really means is this is week 52. And it's been a year of Wellness Wednesday on Facebook Live. I'm super excited about that. I was going to share that at the beginning and I kind of spaced it a little bit. Imagine that. So I'm just super excited, and I'm so thankful to all of you that have ever watched, participated, commented, any of that, because today is 1 year of Wellness Wednesdays. Every Wednesday, And I'm so looking forward to a whole other, I know, Carla, isn't that amazing? I cannot believe it's been a year already. I'm so looking forward to a whole other year of exciting things. If you have a topic you would like me to discuss and you're just not sure how to go about it, send me a message. I love to learn new things. I'll see what I can find. Yes. Danielle, I can't see all of that, but I'm going to look at that when I'm done so that I can respond accordingly. But you get it. You have teenagers, like I said, not necessarily a great idea to just barge in and be like, you can't listen to that. But it is also important to know the why and what they love about it. I know. So yes, officially 50 episodes, but officially 52 weeks. And I'm just so excited and so grateful to all of you that tune in. Okay, it's been a long one today, a little bit long, not too bad, but our last couple were short, so that's okay. I will see you next Wellness Wednesday. Don't forget about Mental Health Awareness Week next week. And let me know if you need to grab a signed copy of Unstoppable to help support NAMI Citrus. Thank you so much. Have a fabulous day and be well. Bye.